we had Dennis Rodman just happen to visit our condo in Chicago.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it was interesting. One of my cousins was friends with him, and he just came and he hung out with us for like good 3-4 hours.
Welcome to the Nicholas Natali Show. Makoto Kern joins us this week. He's the founder of the product development and design agency Impact. Makoto has 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur and in UX product design. Plus, I don't want to name drop for him, but he may or may not have met Dennis Rodman. No big deal. Riddle of the week, what did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Stay tuned to the end of the episode to find out. Let's get started. Hello and welcome. This is the Nicholas Natali Show. I'm your host, Nicholas Natali. Today we have a very special guest, Makoto. Makoto, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Here's where we're going to start. We're starting off hot. So the last time we chatted, there was a story of how your first gig came about, and it was from Craigslist. This is what I remember from you. You'd recently quit your job. Your wife was pregnant with your first child. Break down this context, like what job did you just quit to go rogue? What was happening? And how did Craigslist get involved?
I hope nobody from my old company is going to listen to this because when I was starting, I was a master's in electrical engineer robotics. I was working for a high-tech dental chair manufacturing company.
Man.
And so anytime in my spare time, I was looking on Craigslist. I was looking at whatever. There was no Upwork. There was no Fiverr at that time. Craigslist was it. I was asking friends around, hey, I'm starting this website design company. Do you need any help? And I was constantly, whether it's my lunch break, right after work, before work, constantly talking, trying to hustle. Yeah, I happened to be on Craigslist. I've gotten a few gigs, nothing really big, but then they didn't tell me which company they were, but at the time it was Turtle Wax, and it was one of their subsidiaries called Mystery Marvel Oil.
Nice.
And it was cool. We built a virtual garage that you could drive in and out with cars. It was all built in Flash, and you can purchase product in that website. And it was pretty cool, actually. They kept it up there for several years. So yeah, it was pretty funny that I found that gig on there.
That's awesome.
But that was probably that was the start of one of the biggest. I think it was like a $25,000 gig or something like that. But it was amazing. Like I was like, there we go. This is the start.
Yeah, we're rolling. We're rolling here, man. The two things that stand out to me is one, you were hustling. I love that you're telling everybody, hey, throw something my way. The other thing, Flash, you just gave me like a nostalgic memory. I used to go on all those websites and you'd be like, you have to have Flash to even get here. You have to have Flash to use this. And I was like, how do I even get this thing going? That's funny though. Turtle Wax is like still a huge name. I love Turtle Wax. I just used it.
It's amazing. I mean, I was surprised that they were, using that, but hey, there's companies using Fiverr and Upwork now.
This is very true. I do sell some stuff on Fiverr. And the other day, a company, who knows if it's true, who knows, it's Fiverr at the same time, you also don't know, they hit me up and they're like, we make ads for Candy Crush, we want you to be in an ad. And I was like, Candy Crush is pretty huge, and it's funny that you're sourcing from Fiverr, but yeah, like you said, stuff happens, they're out there. Do some debunking for me here. I was doing some research. LinkedIn says that you've been working on Impact since 2004, but then I checked on Inc. and it says founded in 2014. So I just want to know, what's the truth here? What's the origin story of Impact? Which one do I believe?
You didn't do deeper research with that thing I did in the 1980s. Just kidding.
On the dark web?
I started or grew up in Chicago, born and raised. And so if you go back, it was funny. I actually looked at the Wayback Machine. Our company was called Impact E-Business Solutions. So that's actually where I started the company. And then we moved to Austin, Texas around 2014. So that's when, we basically had to stop the LLC and then we restarted it in Austin, Texas in 2014. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where you see the change. But yeah, if you go back to Wayback Machine, we're called theimpact.com. And I see the ugliest website ever.
You close your eyes when you throw open the website now?
Oh yeah, I see where, you keyword stuff and all those like black hat SEO techniques that Google it and ban you for.
Yeah. Ugh. A different time. I'm going to read the little blurb from LinkedIn and then hit you with a question. So, Impact, a digital product design and development consulting agency that specializes in successfully launching software products. Two things came to mind, but I'm going to start with the one. what do most software startups get wrong when launching? Like, I'll spill some beans. First thing that comes to my mind, I feel like they're not doing user testing. They're just like, we have to make this as fast as we can and just like get it out. But what do you see most often? What are they getting wrong in their launches?
Yeah, you're 100% right. And when you use the term startup, it doesn't have to mean in the traditional sense where you're just this like small bootstrap company, but it could also mean like mid to large size companies launching a brand new product or redesigning their current existing one. Mm-hmm. You have to think. You can think of it as an established company, but a startup within that company. It's interesting because we're always battling as a service company, kind of like, what is the value of your company versus somebody else or somebody else's company? And it's interesting when you think about it in layman's terms, it's like building a bridge. And I think this is the best analogy that I can use is, if you have an old wooden bridge, it's been working around for a while. It's done well, but then you need to build a brand new bridge, new technology, new materials. And you need to understand what risks are those around using those new materials and new methodologies. You have a team that has built the great wooden bridge, but to build that new bridge, that takes some new skill. And you don't want your B team doing that.
Right.
They can paint the bridge, they can, tighten the screws, clean it up, but building a bridge and people can actually die on or have big problems, you want your A team on that. And I think that's, like you're saying, a lot of companies, especially established ones that we work with, they're enterprise-based. We know what we know. So why waste time user testing? We don't need to ask our users. We're the experts. Let's just start building the features.
Yeah.
And we get that all the time. It's like, hey, just give us the wireframes, give us the designs, and our dev team can just go.
That's all the dev team wants to do. They just want to code. Leave them alone and let them make stuff.
And that's where I see a lot of problems is there's so much bias in just that statement of we know what we know. And so much ego around that. And, when you get with the C-suite, they try to force us to really go. And same with, a lot of startup founders too. They're like, I know what I'm doing. That's it. I don't need a user test. Let's just build it. And then once they build it and they realize nobody's using the features, that's because you didn't get enough feedback. You didn't user test. Depending on if you're using consumer versus enterprise, there's definitely differences in those and how they approach it. But there's always, like I always say, there's 3 risk levers that you pull when you try to launch product. And that's, the product, the people, and the process. So you got to have a good process to get it down. You got to have the right product. You have to innovate. You have to see what people actually want. And the team that you're using to build the people, that's so important as well.
I saw something that you posted a while back. 2 things that I think touch on this is like, you said people that start the sentence with, can't we just, and you just try to like shortcut everything is like a recipe for disaster. I mean, that's so true. And I can see them saying like, we have data on these things, but every time you make something new, like it's new. You need to redo these things. And the other thing that you touched on in regards to like building a bridge, this is something that you had me thought provoked while I was doing some research. You were saying that A players on a team, people are concerned that they don't work well with other A players, but in reality, they want to work with other A players. So when you're trying to build a bridge or an excellent product, you want the best that you can find instead of being like, have our A player do all the work and then have them also have to manage all the C players. That sounds miserable. So I think those 3 things that you mentioned are perfect.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I'm seeing, with a lot of private equity, a lot of companies trying to make themselves look more valuable. They tend to just look for the cheapest solution. And especially when you have your financial, your accounting look at, okay, why do we need to keep these people? And they just look at the bottom line. That's where they make the biggest mistakes and errors. And we could, definitely get more into that. But you don't want the cheapest resource building your most important thing, which is your product. And companies just say, hey, how can we do this cheaper?
That's a dangerous game. It's a scary game too.
Hey, what's going on? It's Nick. Many folks inquire how they can support the podcast. You can do so by leaving a 5-star review on the platform you're listening on. That's always a good way to go. Goes a long way, and it's free. Or you can subscribe to our Patreon to have access to early released episodes at patreon.com/Nicholas Vitale. Wanted to answer that quick FAQ for you. All right, back to the episode.
So when I was in college, I took a human computer interaction class. And I know that you have a graduate certificate in human computer interaction. But something that they made us do, I don't know why I remember it, I just thought it was so interesting, is before we could make anything like a wireframe digitally or something, or maybe it was, we did some sort of makeup in whatever, like a Figma similar type tool. We had to do the wireframe and then we printed it out and then we would take it to our friends who are not software, like had nothing to do with software or websites. We lay it in front of them and have them use a pen and be like, okay, where would you click? And then what would you do after that? And I was always so shocked to be like, I was not expecting anyone to use it like this, or like, you didn't even make it to the end because I didn't allow you to based on how you used it. I was always surprised by that. So what's been the most fascinating human behavior things that you have found based on certain UIs?
I love this question. It obviously gets to kind of our bread and butter and what we do and what I've been doing for, 18 plus years. Our company's basically been more focused on enterprise and B2B development, but we always still work with B2C or consumer facing products since, basically they're not forced to use the product just like an enterprise. If the company buys it, you have to use it. But with consumers, they have a lot of choices and you have to keep them engaged and you have to figure out, what's important for them. You have to test your hypotheses, and that's so important. It doesn't have to be in this like super expensive room with, all this research and eye tracking cameras or anything like that. You could do like you were doing it, like a guerrilla based testing, just get that quick and dirty feedback. That's so important. But, us as the UX designers, we're trying to always figure out how to reduce that friction, whether to get your users to solve their problems, to purchase a product. What is that resistance in that moment of time? When they're about to give you your money, which is what the business wants. And so you as a, designer or whatever, you will have those biases. Your product person will have biases. Your C-suite will have your biases. They said, oh, no, just do this. We've been doing this for years, but they've never, they're not in it at that moment in time. So they don't know. They can't picture themselves. And so I've heard where, if you think about it, look at your phone. How many apps do you have on your phone?
Too many.
Yeah. And how many do you actually use once a day, several times a day, or once a month?
Maybe 5.
That one app that you use every day, that's $1 billion product.
Man.
So yeah, most of the apps you don't use, you don't go back and forth. And so, in our industry, there's a term that we call like a dark patterns. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, lay it on me. Sounds ominous.
A lot of this comes from some of the gaming industry. You see, because you have to constantly engage your users. Others come from more like hiding or showing information, making it really difficult to quit something, to cancel the membership or subscription. You're basically creating friction the other way around. Yeah. And so, those are things that you start to, I don't know, the engagement goal of the business. You want the users to feel that dopamine, can start to tread on a slippery slope of like ethics. If you're smart enough to do it in the right way and where you're not trying to hide things, users, I think, are quick to understand that or see that. It's friction and trust. I think those are the two most important things, especially when it comes to consumers. And consumers are getting smarter and smarter about things, and they start to recognize certain patterns. Just recently, I saw my Apple bill with my kids. They've got my credit card and I see the game. I'm like, what is this game? Why is there, $100 of coins in here? Yeah. And so I'm sure many parents can relate to that. I mean, I download games just to see what the latest techniques are. So I understand what they're doing, but it is hard, even as an adult, to do that because so much is based on fundamentals of human psychology. And what do you get them to continuously come back? What can you pop up? What can you notify them? We're going to have so much noise coming at us that it's going to be something where, as UX designers, what do we do to mitigate that if you want to be more ethical? What can you do where it's not so disruptive? So while there's new user interfaces, there's new devices, what comes back to that human psychology?
All of it's so good because we all live through that every day. Every time we pull up our phone, we're going face to face with that. I want to know about how you do engage users and keep those dopamine hits and what is ethical alliance, because I think it's also crazy because I've seen things about how they say our dopamine's getting burned through too fast. There's you go on any social media platform and it's not even one video playing at a time for these short videos. It's like they've cut them in half. They have a gameplay on top with a talking head below and you're still scrolling through. It's like half of our attention needs to be engaged on multiple things at a time now because we're so drained of all of this and it's constantly fighting for our attention. Since you've seen some of these games, what's the most addictive or engaging form to do this? Any of your thoughts? I'm just curious about all of it now.
So it's interesting because I just heard with being in Vegas, what's addicting? This casinos. Why are they addicting? It's and it's also what I heard is that when the up and down scrolling, the up and down of the slot machines, there's something to that it releases that dopamine, or we engage with that. So same with as you're swiping up and down, the slot machines are going up and down. That vertical movement has something to do and changes the way you engage with something. It's like heroin for the brain. Yeah. And with the Apple Vision, you just can't imagine. Can somebody sit there with just all this stuff coming in at you? The whole Ready Player One, where you're sitting there with the goggles, and they don't want the corporation to take over because it's just going to be ads coming at you. That is something that we're approaching, and it's scary because just everything is fighting for your attention. You see it with just the devices, and with our brains, it's more developed as adults, but with kids, I think there's always been stories of, Apple or Google executives, they don't let their kids touch their devices until they're a certain age because they know how addicting it is. I see it with my kids. If they've been on a device for a while, their reaction, and they're just a little bit more like, hey, what do you want? What are you doing? And their attention span, and just they're not paying attention, no attention to detail. Their eyesight is, getting ruined. I mean, there's so many things that are negative to that. And I think it's just, as parents, we have to regulate that. But just as adults, it's just hard because they're using people like, user experience designers to figure out what makes people click.
And they're figuring out more and more of how to do it every day. Yeah. What do you do with notifications for yourself? How do you block noise?
Whatever works for you. I mean, I get into doom scrolling for sure.
It sucks
Twitter
you in.
has definitely gotten me more and more hooked. Yeah. It's informational too. I mean, the information could go down rabbit holes, and just there's so much information at your hand, and you're like, wow, this is, there's some definitely positive parts of it. But if you got to get shit done, your time is all of a sudden like, God, it's been an hour. You're doing it right before bed. I didn't get as much sleep because I was doing that. So you have to block off time, or just say, okay, I'm going to swipe 5 times or 10 times. It's that discipline to not do something, I think, kind of helps make those checks for you to stop. It's like an addiction.
It is like an addiction. I feel like it's like one everybody has just kind of accepted, for lack of better words. Like all the other forms of addiction, we're quick to be like, hey, you got to cut that out. But now that we're all doing the same thing, we're kind of like, yeah, I get it. And then I don't want to feel left out if you saw something. Or, what's funny? I'll give an example of the other day. I quoted this video to my friend. Like I sent him a text, and I was like, okay, the quote's like, it's a good time to say holy smokes. That's what I said. I just sent that. And he was like, it's always a good time to say holy smokes. And I could tell he didn't get the reference. So then I went and looked for this video. This video had like 9,000 views on it. And I'm like, I'm quoting things that people haven't seen a bunch of. That just shows like how much information and how this thing is even getting to me. And I don't know. It made me like have a little bit of a spiral of like, dude, it's too much internet. Like it's so big. You can't consume all of it.
Oh yeah. Now with smartwatches and everything, I think I just had something ping me on my iPad, my laptop, and my watch all at the same time, just like 5 seconds ago.
As long as we don't get the chip in our head, I think we might be all right. We'll have a fighting chance.
But you do want to learn Kung Fu.
I do. I just want it innately implanted into me. Maybe we'll circle back to that. Let's go on to another topic of market cycles. So I saw 2 separate posts that you did, and I thought they were great insights, and I just want to expand on them further. So you had one post that was about bear markets, talking about how it's really good for building. There's no hype. You can focus on building products that customers actually want. And then another post that we're talking about downturns, where those who continue to build and innovate and even spend during downturns are going to be the ones that come ahead of their competition. Where do you see the markets at right now, and what's your current strategy?
Yeah, so that's a great question, especially I've been around for a few of the last recessions, especially 2008, been around for the 2000 web boom and bust, or .com boom and bust. There's always a cycle when it comes to our economy. It's just a natural thing that has to happen. Things can't always go up or can't always go down. It just seems to revolve around like introductions of new technology and the rush to do it. The internet, like I said, .com, e-commerce, smartphones, crypto, NFTs, AI, all those things have that boom and bust cycles. And I think, there are some industries that definitely will evolve faster or jump on those technologies, and they'll need help with launching new products within that industry. We're trying to position our company to identify like those resilient ones, those companies that are looking to continually innovate. With AI now, everybody's trying to do something with AI, no matter what. And just the lower the barrier to entry, the more important you need to focus on is speed. Because everybody's doing it. They're going to do it, fast, but you have to do it faster. What we try to focus on or look at is more of the higher barrier to entry. Companies that pare back their innovation during recessions, they're going to get killed by the ones that don't. Because we're going to be eventually coming out of it. I understand you have to do cost savings, but you have to be hyper focused on creating that roadmap and that plan. But most companies that we see, they don't see past the next 30 to 60 days. They're all very reactive. Trying to get them to see 12 to 24 months out is not the norm. It's really important to do that. And so we try to do that with our clients. We try to say, hey, we need to know what that looks like. You need to have your whole company know what that roadmap looks like, because otherwise you're just going to be reactive all the time and you'll just be scared to take those risks.
Do you think they're scared to take those risks out of we're going to run out of money, and if we keep spending, this is going to be our downfall? Or I don't want to use the word balancing act, but there is half of I need to cut costs, because if that's, just the truth of it, I lose half my clients, I should probably cut some of my costs or whatever. But on the other side, like you're saying, when everybody else stops spending, you should double down and get your stuff right.
It's all about reducing risk. We're always in, I say we're a design company or a development company, but really we're trying to identify where the biggest risks are for our clients. And so where is it that you're not sure of when it comes to your product or the problems that you're trying to solve? Once we identify that, is it of high value? If it's of high value, then let's reduce that risk, because we want to try to see, let's user test. That's the stuff that you get into user testing, because it is high risk, but it's of high value. Anything that's table stakes, go ahead and do it. Just design it, make it, go ahead. Anything that you feel like is high risk but low value, don't even touch. So we have a kind of a proprietary workshops that we go through with the C-suite, especially at the beginning of engagements, to walk them through this, because it's so important to be aligned as a company, especially in these times when everything's great. Everybody's making smart decisions, but when it's tough, it really takes that foresight, and through like I said, people, processes, and product. You need to understand what is a good process to get my team aligned, communicate hey, this is what we see is the blue sky. This is the target that we want to hit. And what are the risks that we're going to reduce? But we know we got to get there.
Do they have any pushback when they want to move fast? You want to move fast? Like you mentioned, the best way to outcompete anybody, even if you have a higher tier price, is beat them through being fast. But then you're we need a 2-year plan. Do they go, well, if you're moving fast, I only need to know the next 30 days. I don't want to know the next 2 years. It doesn't matter. We'll get it all done this month.
It's interesting because we always go through this kind of conversations with the clients. And what we do is we really disseminate down, just getting people in the room talking and getting people face to face and being able to just talk is you can either do it one-on-one and go through each person, go back, report back. That takes weeks, if not months. But to do it in a room where it's in a workshop setting, it's collaborative. People are they're seeing each other face to face or even virtually. It doesn't take much if you know how to facilitate right and get people to be engaged. They are stuck to bad habits, or they always go back to bad habits. But I think if companies have been burnt enough, or they know oh, this doesn't work, then they're more susceptible to introducing them a new process. So it's always a battle that we always have to fight with the C-suite is, can you do it faster, cheaper? No. Pick, what is it?
If you want to do it right.
Faster, cheaper, quality. Pick 2 out of those 3.
There's a point of desperation for everybody to make decisions. And so if somebody is out of shape, there becomes a point where they finally feel they're too out of shape. So then they'll make the decision to get in shape. And I feel like what you're saying too is these companies have had to have gotten burned, or at least just see enough of what other people have failed at to realize, oh no, we do need another process, and be open to it. Yeah, like you're saying, if the C-suite is just going to fight you the whole time on it, it's never going to happen. They have to have enough pain or discomfort from what's already happening to want to do this next thing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's I almost reference another thing is WebMD. You can self-diagnose, yourself. I got a headache, a cough, oh God, I got cancer. Or it could be vice versa. Maybe you do have it, but it's nothing. It's no big deal. Its ego comes into play a lot, especially at the C-suite level. They have to have that kind of confidence and ego. But if you let it blind you, that becomes a problem. To make any kind of change has to come from the top down, not from the bottom up. And so that's always, we try to have highest paid person in the room, the hippo, make that decision and be there and help us make those decisions and push that through the company. Otherwise, it's hard to get change done.
Geez, completely agree. I'm going to hit you with a quick twist. No segue here.
All right.
Hopping into a new topic. So in your home office where you're currently sitting, if you look above your monitor, you're going to see a piece of art of Dennis Rodman diving for a ball that says, "Give everything." Why Dennis Rodman and not Michael Jordan?
Oh, that's funny. You know what? We had Dennis Rodman just happen to visit our condo in Chicago.
What?
Yeah, it was interesting. One of my cousins was friends with him, and he just came and he hung out with us for good 3-4 hours.
How? How does this happen?
It was amazing. He's like, "Hey, Dennis Rodman's coming to by your place. We're going to hang out." And I said, "Wow, okay." I think this was around the time he was visiting Kim Jong-un in North Korea. Crazy stuff.
Recent.
So I had to bring up some of that around with him. And but he turned out to be, he was just asking us very, very good questions. He was really asking about my relationship with my wife, how things are going, how you're successful, just really good questions that he really cared about, and he would really dive deep into it. This is a side that I didn't think I would see, because you see the party guy, the guys that's crazy and all that. I saw a complete opposite. And he says he's a total introvert. That's kind of a show that he puts on and all this. And so I think it was just that personal connection. And when I saw the poster, obviously when he's just diving and says, give everything, I was like, oh man, that's it.
Yeah.
So no, I think I just try to do that with my work from starting this company. It's been a long time, and it's everything that I give, and I love what I do. It's not something that I went to school for and just kind of did it because that was my career path that I chose. It's something that I chose to want to do. And so that's why I feel like there's more passion and love for this. I still design. I still get into Figma. I still get into that stuff because I so much enjoy that. Running the business is great. I've always been, interested in entrepreneurs and how that journey happens and how success happens. But I still, deep down love design and just coming up with something new and creative.
Man, that is such a wild story with Dennis Rodman. Oh my gosh. But it's also,
and we were drinking with them too, and we were keeping up, which was not easy.
It was your cousin, right? Your cousin. Did he say how? He met him in the grocery store and was like, "Hey, come over, hang out, man."
They actually were. It was my cousin and my wife. They were just out at one of the lounges. We were in the scene in Chicago, and I think they just started talking to him. He was really cool, and partied a little bit with him, and just became friends, and just said, "Hey, we're just gonna hang out for an hour or two." And yeah, it was it was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
I got a signed jersey and everything. Yeah.
What a big day. That's a huge day. That's funny. It's also funny because when I moved into my last place, I was thinking about what posters I wanted to put up, and I was putting up all these different people that inspired me, or I was finding the posters for them. And I also got a photo of Dennis Rodman. And I think it's because, at least for me, I relate more to Dennis than I do Michael in a lot of ways. Dennis is someone, at least his basketball career-wise, has grit, is willing to do the dirty work, does not care if he looks foolish. He's out there to get after it. And it's a whatever it takes mentality. Obviously, I think Michael Jordan has that, but the talent discrepancy, I probably relate with Dennis more. And that's why I loved that I saw that poster for you, because I was like, oh, okay, Makoto gets after it. I know that. Seeing that poster, I know.
That's actually, you're probably right now that I think about it. Definitely we've probably all been, we have our wild days, and I definitely had them before I had kids, and I agree to that. We're risk takers. Michael Jordan obviously is as well, but I think some of us definitely identify more with some of the wild side of Dennis Rodman, and we love that. So maybe that's why we all gravitate towards each other.
That's right. I'm going to lay a big bomb of a question for you.
Sure.
And it's straightforward. It's simple. It's a lesson that took you too long to learn throughout your career. What's one that you're just this is the one I wish I would have learned way before I learned it?
I do tend to be very trusting, I think, and just overly loyal. It's funny. I had one of my senior leads tell me I'm loyal to a fault to my clients and to my team. So I think because of that, I've initially approached trying to be really nice, trying to say the client's always number one, and just doing everything what they say, and just being kind of almost like you're just taking orders. And so I think as I matured, gained more wisdom, experience, I'm able now to speak confidently to executives and just tell them when they're making bad decisions, or, hey, I don't want to sugarcoat this. This person's up.
Yeah.
Or this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You need to do something. Or if they're being unfair to my employees, it's, this is something that I stand up to. And so I think, don't be too nice. Clients at that level need to be told directly, because maybe they've been being, sugarcoated for, especially with corporations. That's probably why I got out of that, because there is that political game that's played when you work for a company. It's definitely that plays into how direct some people are. That's the most important thing is I'm glad I'm not in a company that does that, but I'm able to stand on the outside and give my honest opinion about things. And, it does take time. It does take confidence to build that for entrepreneurs, especially from a service-based industry. And a product-based is different, but from a service, you definitely need to have that. I tell my team all the time, I said, look, I'm going to back you up, and you need to be able to tell the client if they're wrong, if they're not doing something right, and don't be afraid to say it as it is. So
that's a good lesson. That's what I'm still learning. I definitely fall into the nicety trap, but on the flip side, I feel like I have a good perspective on how it should work. I just haven't done it yet. Like, I think in a lot of ways, you being direct, one, as a consultant, that's great, because you should say some things that hurt, because then they'll actually have some changes. But in terms of like behavior, it's just behavior correction. Like, if these people have been acting this way for years and nobody said anything, maybe they just didn't know that was inappropriate. And you're finally the one that's like, hey, you can't talk to people that way. That's not right. Yeah. How has that progression been? Because I feel like it's constantly, at least the game for me, where it's like experimenting how to say it, when to say it, timing, feeling guilty or remorseful when they do have reactions, but that's kind of the name of the game at times. So
I mean that's so important. I try to always surround myself with smarter, better people. It's funny too. My wife's like, you don't know how to talk to people. She says that, of course, during arguments, but I tend to bounce things off of her. Even when I say, hey, this is what's happening. What do you think? And I talk to my leads and I say the same thing. I said, hey, how do we approach this? Because I feel like this is probably a better way to say it, or how do we, be more direct? So I think getting that feedback from people before you do it always helps with how you want to say it, and just, you got to practice it. And
the old repetition game. Hate to hear that's the answer, but it's always the best one, because you can actually get the experience to do it. Hot dog. Makoto, there's a lot to talk about with you. There's it's so much to cover. I actually want to talk about traveling, because you have traveled a lot, all over the world. I mean, Portugal, Singapore, all of the states, that you just went to. But the one that I wanted to touch on is, how do you travel with kids internationally? Because I feel like a lot of people are either intimidated, or you'll hear this, oh, once I have a kid, I can't travel anymore. But I feel like it's such a good opportunity for the whole family to have, greater experiences. So how do you do it? Is there tricks and hacks? What do you got?
Like I said, I have a family of 3. 2 of them are teenagers now, 15, 13, and 10. And so we've been homeschooling for about 6 years. Ever since we like early parents, we try to introduce our kids and ourselves to these experiences with kids. A lot of our friends, when early with kids, are like, we're not going to a restaurant, not until the kids know how to behave or whatever. It's not until they're much older. We took our kids to restaurants. My wife, being, I think, Eastern European, basically, she's a little bit more strict about things, just manners, respect, and things like that, which is great to see. I tend to be a little bit more relaxed, but I definitely appreciate when she does that, because you can see it reflected in kids now. And so we follow through all the way from just, going out to restaurants, but then actually traveling with kids, which is not easy. Nothing is easy being a parent. It's work. And many people don't want to put in the work. They just want a parent, tell them what to do, almost like a dog. Just tell them what your kids to do. Tell them, what direction to look at, what to say. But we tend to give our kids more autonomy. And we've seen the growth of and the importance of traveling and seeing things outside of your bubble. Because I come from my background, I'm half Japanese. I traveled when I was in the suburbs of Chicago where, I was probably the only Asian kid for 100, 200 miles. Coming back and just hearing, there's a bunch of ninjas and samurais running around Japan. It's just so funny when I'm bringing back like CD players and games that they don't even have yet in the States. It's so important for us to open our kids' eyes to what's out there, because traditional schools are being questioned now, traditional ways in which college is so expensive. Is it worth it now anymore? It definitely is for certain paths that you take. I have an advanced degree, and I believe there's definitely importances of certain colleges, and what they teach and how they teach is really important. But I want our kids to be adaptable. That's the most important thing. And by putting them into different situations, letting them figure it out, letting them see us go through good, bad experiences, whether that's on a plane, traveling for 22 hours to Australia or New Zealand, getting lost in the jungles of New Zealand in a camper van, trying to figure our way out, to, crazy, just dealing with other people in other countries who don't speak English. They're feeling that, and that's something that kind of grows the bond tighter with our kids. We let them, from simple things of letting them order, letting them do things. All these experiences help so much to grow our kids. And, my wife and kids are so supportive of, what I do. And because of that, I try to, if I have to work and they get to go experience something, great. Just right now, we just got back from a 5,000 mile road trip, and we hit about 8 different cities or 8 different states, and it's just been, it's hard for me sometimes, but again, I love what I do. I'll stay up late at night working with my team to getting up early in the morning. And, if I say I can't enjoy the day with you guys because I've got to take care of her work, then it happens. So I've been doing this for so long, almost 2 decades. So I know how to kind of balance that out now. And I think, when I see other freelancers or other people on my team, I respect that work-life balance. When shit hits the fan and you need to get stuff done, you need to get it done. And that's a priority. And so I tell the team, if I need you, I need you. And if a client needs you, we need to get it done. And that's your focus. And if you can't, then you need to let me know, communicate and step in, and we could step up. And so I think that communication is so important with whether it's family or employees or your client.
That's a fair trade-off. I was thinking about that too, because you work completely remotely. The headquarters is in a different state than where you are. So do you wrap your schedule around your personal life while also taking care of this business that's in another state? That's wild.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work? How does the setup work?
It's funny because even right now when we were thinking about doing this podcast, I have equipment, so I want to make sure I do this right. I have a good camera. I have a good, just microphone. Again, it's maybe just more emotional intelligence and empathy. Mm-hmm. What makes it so that you have the best experience when you're dealing with me? I want to make sure that I have that. I don't want to just use a crappy camera and just use my laptop mic because I know that's important for you.
Yeah.
Same with the client. If I know I have to be there, I have to be ready. I do what I can to make sure that happens. And so it feels like it's seamless. It doesn't matter where I'm at, but it feels like I'm right next to you. I want that experience because I want the same thing in return when it comes to dealing with people. So I think hopefully just being a UX designer helps with that empathy.
Yeah, exactly. And Dennis Rodman looking down on you saying, give everything, both of those things. Makoto, we are moving into the final question of the podcast. But before we do, I want to say some nice words about you. Something that stood out to me when we first got started talking about how to do UI for engagement and things like that. You talked about ethical and moral lines. And I'm really happy you said that because I think that's so important, especially when you have control over how people are interacting with those things. And especially with things like we mentioned, being addicted to these things. And the other half of you being willing to take care of your team and being that loyal person. I think you just have so many great characteristics about you that I'm happy you're in the position that you're in because you get to influence people in a great way. I think that's awesome. So thanks for coming on the show and sharing a piece of that.
Actually, one of my first podcasts I've been on, and I'm glad to be the first one to do this.
You're doing great. I would never have guessed.
Yeah.
The final question of the podcast is, what does it mean to live a fulfilling life?
I think if you're excited and motivated to get up, you're excited to see your family, you're excited to see your friends, your coworkers, your employees, your clients, and I think just yourself in the mirror. If you aren't happy with any of those things, then I think it's for you to figure out how to focus and improve that situation and just be disciplined to see it through. I think that's how you do it. I don't know.
It's a good indicator. I like it. Makoto, where can people connect with you on the internet? Where do you want to send them? How can they say hello?
You can see our website, my company Impact, with iimpact.io. You can reach me at makoto@impact.io as well. Yeah, or you can give me a call. You'll see our number up there. However you want to reach me, Instagram, Twitter, I'm all there.
Awesome. Those links will be in the show notes. Go say hello to Makoto. Makoto, thank you for being on the show.
Awesome. Great for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review. We have early releases for episodes this season coming out on our Patreon, patreon.com/Nicholas Vitale. And the real reason you're still here, you want to know the answer to the riddle of the week. What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Supplies! I feel like I may have done that one. Have I done that one? Someone tell me if I've done that one. It's just too good not to do twice, though. Supplies! Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week, Friday, 6 a.m.